Hey everyone, Pup Twigs here in Orlando, Florida, and another episode or special episode of Unleashed is going to be for our Pride episodes. And joining me from California is Pup Templar. How are you?
I'm doing the best I can.
Well, that's about all we all can do at this point, right?
Yeah. Fact.
It's a crazy country we live in right now.
That's a bit of an understatement. Fiction is less bizarre.
Oh yeah, yeah, I know. You're right. So I just like to kick it off. First thing is, how do you yourself personally define pride?
I define pride as that time of the year where queer and other marginalized groups of people stand together, raise our voices together, and we demand what we are owed, our equality, our equity, our space, our allotment to exist in peace. And a very huge issue I see since the announcement of the election results is a lot more people weaponizing their marginalized identities to break apart our collective power when we really can't afford to be silencing voices
Yep,
during this time. Every voice you silence is less resources the administration has to use to get at you.
that's right. And you're exactly right. They're trying to separate us to the point where we don't have a big voice. I saw that starting out with social media, where everyone started leaving Twitter and all or X, and that's exactly what they're trying to get us to do. So they separate us all out. So,
Yep.
so what does pride represent to you in terms of your own identity?
So, um, as someone who was born to a German mother, a Native American father, is asexual, gay romantic, pan kinky. Pride is an incredibly critical time of the year for me because I didn't really start exploring any of those aspects of myself other than my Native American and German heritages until my mid to late 20s. And when I'm at Pride, I am so proud of just how many people feel like they can be as loud and take up as much space as they want because for someone who grew up in North Dakota, where that type of energy and pride and self actualization is violently shat on,
Yeah,
it is so important for me to be able to express all those facets of my identity during pride.
yeah, no, I get you. I grew up in a rural community in Oklahoma, and you just weren't gay at that point because of where it was. But well, when you think about pride, I know pride is huge. What aspects of pride are most important to you yourself?
As the Glockenspiel is going off obnoxiously. Um, So unity is the single most important thing that I love about Pride, even if a lot of it is just surface level platitudes.
Hmm.
It's the moments of unity where we see just how powerful we could be if we really pushed ourselves to force the changes we want to see. But what I see a lot of is a lot of people abandoning that concept of unity that Pride was founded on. The first Pride was a riot for the trans POC community that was then supported by every other sector of the queer and kinky community around the world.
Yeah,
And that unity of force is what got us the queer civil rights movement.
yeah, exactly. Well, how has your understanding of pride evolved over time? I know you just mentioned the first one was a riot, but what you've seen in your lifetime, how has it evolved?
So my view of pride has evolved immensely and in ways I can never fully put into words. Pride has problems. Problems I was once blind to when I first started getting into the community, and now that I call out actively. But I
Hmm.
also know that by being that squeaky wheel, calling out problems within queer leadership, their hypocrisies, their unwillingness to practice what they preach, or who's being excluded, who's being included, this, that, or the other thing, by noticing all these problems, I have this deeper understanding of what pride is doing versus what it's supposed to represent. And it has actually caused me problems to be the person calling these things out.
Yeah, I totally understand that. So, well, when you think about, us collectively as a community, what role does pride play in fostering us as a community?
It often does this through festivals, marches, parades, protests, and more. But Pride isn't the only time this happens. Events, gatherings, venues, these are where the real sense of community is fostered through the tenets that Pride tries to teach. And Pride is just the flashiest time that this all comes together. And probably my favorite thing about it is that during Pride, people set aside all of the problems that a lot of these other smaller spaces tend to have and just focus on what they can do right to make everything better. And I often see a lot of events take lessons from each year's Pride to make their spaces better, to foster better senses of community.
Yeah, and what I don't get is because here in Orlando, we have one of the biggest pride parades, but ours doesn't happen until October because it's too hot in June to have it here. But it draws 250,000 people to a festival downtown, and you can't tell me all of those people are all LGBTQ. They're not. A lot of them are parents and kids, and why
Allies
don't they
and
support us?
accomplices
We
and
need them to
supporters.
support us all year long.
Exactly. Not just when it's convenient or profitable.
Yeah, not when you're getting a party and a parade. You need to do it year round.
And that's the difference between ally and accomplice. An ally will be there when it is safe and convenient. An
Yes.
accomplice will be there when it is hard and dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to push that distinction a little bit further is, with this administration, they're already disappearing political opponents, deporting celebrities and performers back to their nations just for having posted something critical of Trump. I have my name on 7 different class action lawsuits, 4 different legislation proposals, 5 different letters of complaint to Congress, and I have helped multiple friends in different states organize several major protests, things that I all have my name on against the Trump administration. Quite frankly, I'm surprised I haven't been disappeared yet.
Wow. Well, yeah, and you're right because they're just making them disappear, and there's no rhyme or reason why, other than they're speaking out against. Which I thought that was our right here in the U.S. is we can speak our mind, but yeah, we're trying to be
Until Trump
silent.
cared about rule of law or the Constitution.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, how do you think pride has impacted the rights and the visibility of the LGBTQ plus community?
Pride is critical to LGBTQI2S plus rights and visibility. Stonewall, the very first Pride riot, was what started the queer rights movement, as I mentioned earlier. And
Hmm.
Pride is a protest and a riot and a big, giant explosion of noise that forces those uncomfortable with us to stand there and bear witness to the truth that is the legitimate cause.
Yeah. Well,
So let's keep it that way.
yeah, I know. We need to be loud and proud is what we need to be. So, what do you hope others understand about Pride when they participate or even just come and witness our Pride festivals?
This one's going to go out to any straight people who find this. Pride isn't forcing you to be something.
Yeah,
Okay? We're not forcing you to change. We don't want you to become gay. We don't want you to become queer in any way.
that's
You
right.
can be you, but you're not your pride. Sorry, tongue tied. Pride is only showing you the things you've worked to suppress,
Hmm.
silence, and hide. The things you've swept under the rug, that have come home to roost. And we don't want to be silent anymore. We don't want to be suppressed. We don't want to be eradicated. And we have queer pride and no straight pride because you, the straight people, are terrified of anything different from yourselves.
Yep, you're right. Well, how do you celebrate Pride and what does it mean for you to participate? Because I know you really get into a lot of the activism part of it.
So, as I mentioned before, I do a lot of political activism to help defend queer rights, writing legislation proposals, organizing protests, this, that, and the other thing. But another thing I do is I teach political literacy in spaces. I've done 2 spaces this year already, Austin, Texas, and Southern California. And the main takeaway is I tell you how to talk a politician's language.
Mm-hmm.
But to move more into the question, more often than not, I march in the leather contingents or the furry contingents at pride parades. I don't often go to a lot of the festivals themselves. I more or less stay in the vendor section outside of the festivals because let's face it, $89 a ticket is fucking ridiculous.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Well, that's for like the more VIP stuff, but like you get the point. Pride festivals can be crazy expensive and the drinks and the food are ridiculous. Like oftentimes are more expensive than conventions. But for me, it's also about defending rights, pushing civil rights, legislation, all of that, and especially against this current administration, which is working so very hard to shut down anyone and everyone that's critical of them,
Yeah.
to try and mute the conversation and create a perfect echo chamber.
Well, in your view, how can our Pride festivals help to create, positive change in our society now?
Pride has only ever affected positive change in society. By making ourselves extremely visible, extremely loud, extremely well heard, extremely well spoken, Pride has pushed civil rights forward faster than many other movements in history.
Yeah.
Not all of them, just many of them.
Many of them, yes.
And there's an old adage, a rising tide lifts all ships. If you empower the weakest of us, you empower everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It is essential that queer folks continue to use pride as a form of protest and riot and contest against the powers in charge, especially now that we are so viciously being stripped of all of the work that we had put in to get the queer rights movement back in the 60s, 70s, 80s.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thinking about Pride and what it is today, what message do you think it's going to send to our future generations of our LGBTQ plus people?
Pride has never existed as a singular specific message. But I do have a message for myself regarding my version of Pride. Everything looks dark right now. Everything seems hopeless right now.
Yeah.
There are few to no guardrails protecting us, and that is why your voice is more important than ever. We need to set aside our petty squabbles, our differences, and raise our voices together as a unified queer community because we have strength in numbers. We have strength in the platform, and we can force them to listen if we just work together.
Yeah.
Be it through peaceful protests, riots, legislation, writing and organizing events, whatever it is you can do to push your voice forward, do it. Because above all else, voting against Republicans is the single most effective thing we can do right now.
Yes.
And anyone who supports their agenda needs to be put in their place.
Agree.
I call myself a blue lantern. In darkest day, in raging night, with strong hearts full, our souls ignite. When all seems lost in the war of light, look to the stars, for hope burns bright.
Um, well, It has been an absolute pleasure getting to. I didn't realize you were so much into, Activision and stuff like that, and being active in the
It's
community
one
that
of the
way.
biggest things I do in the background, and I've really only become more vocal about it in the last year in response to a small handful of people saying I do nothing to support the community, or in fact, actually work to harm it. And
Yeah,
it's like, oh, so I work to harm the community despite always showing up for protests, despite always showing up to festivals, despite always offering aid and comfort and safety and spaces to flee if you're in a dangerous situation, or supporting people's identity, or writing all this legislation, doing all this political activism,
yeah,
going into new areas and being my authentic fetishy self and queer self in order to make the environment more friendly for other people, putting my name on extremely high profile political opposition to the administration, knowing full well that puts my life and those immediately around me in danger.
yeah. Well,
When community leaders weaponize their identity to shut down criticism of themselves and silence voices that work hard and genuinely towards the greater good. And I will admit, I have said some incredibly stupid shit in the past. We all have.
yeah, we all have.
But when you don't allow yourself to face criticism, or when you present criticism, you withhold critical information to allow that person to actually learn and self assess and become better, you do more harm than that person.
Yeah,
Because if you don't teach, you can't have accountability. And if you can't have accountability, you cannot have a community. Communities are built on communication, education, acceptance, and forgiveness. By weaponizing any element of that, you create cliques. Cliques destroy communities, and that is the exact opposite of what we need right now.
yeah, you're right. And that's exactly what's happening right now too.
Communities are terrified of possibly having someone who supports the administration in their midst, so they're willing to silence and shut down anybody who might have the slightest predilection towards a slightly not extremist progressive agenda.
Yeah.
And that only serves to harm us in the long term.
Well, I just want to thank you for coming on. It was awesome getting to learn a little bit more about you and what you do for our community, and I really appreciate it and thank you for that as well.
If
And
you ever want to bring me on for another episode specifically about teaching how to communicate political activism,
mhm.
I would be more than honored to do so.
Well, we might have to spin off another podcast and do something like that because that sounds pretty awesome. Well,
Awesome.
thank you. I appreciate it, and I know it won't be the last time you and I talk.
I look forward to it.
I'll see you later.
Bark, bark.